This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work with another response to an AskProfWolff question from our Patreon community. This time the question comes from Walid Sami. And Walid asks an important question about the interaction, the overlap, the connections between, on the one hand, socialist and Marxist economics, and on the other hand, certain viewpoints, arguments, positions within Islamic culture, what the Islamic religion has had to say about economic issues. So I want to begin by saying all religious traditions, including Islam, have contained strong, clear arguments that have favored equality, lack of exploitation, stability, important values for the mass of people going about the production and distribution of the goods and services that we call economics. All religions have done that because people in all religious traditions have come up against exploitative, unjust economic systems and have found ways to oppose them. For example, and this is one of the most important, in both the Christian and Islamic traditions, just to take two of them, and it's not only them, what I'm about to say, there are strong arguments in the literature, in the tradition, against charging interest for loans. Both religions included many people at various times in various countries speaking strongly against charging interest. In a sense, it was an argument that was fundamentally ethical and moral. It said that the only reason, more or less, that a person or institution borrows money is if they are in need. And if they are in need, it is the appropriate human task of others who are not in need to help out, to help those who are in need, because one day they will be in need, the shoes will be reversed, and it'll be important to make a loan to help people through a difficult time. Charging interest, making the person you're helping give you back more than you gave them in their time of need, struck people, thoughtful, religious people, as outrageous, as contrary to what they understood to be the teachings of Muhammad or of Jesus or of whoever was the important law and ethics giver in the religious tradition. Likewise, in many, many religions, there have been prohibitions on overcharging for a good or a service in a market. In other words, there was a notion of what was fair, that should be charged, and what was unfair and shouldn't be charged, and that it was thought that a market should abide by ethical and moral rules just like every other human institution should. If it costs $5 to make something, you should not charge $500 to sell it. That's not appropriate. That's not necessary. That is hurtful to the buyers who buy it, etc., etc. In socialist and Marxist theory, that's where the labor theory of value came in. It said that the price of something ought to bear some logical relationship to the amount of work in the community it took to produce any particular object. A community, any community, only has so much labor of the adult, working, healthy population to devote to producing goods and services. Every society has to allocate the available labor among all the different kinds of goods and services that labor could produce. And it is therefore a kind of ethical logic, if you like, to suggest that what each good should cost us have some connection to how much of our community's labor went into producing it. There is an ethical component here that's important to recognize. Then there are taxes. The whole idea of a tax is the notion that the community as a whole, through its government, whether that be a king or a council of elders or a prince or an elected body of some kind, really doesn't matter so much. In many religious traditions, whatever the form of the government, the notion is that it ought to be able to collect from everybody the amount of money needed to produce goods and services that are distributed to everybody. Does everybody need the benefit of roads and harbors? Yes. So we should tax ourselves as a community to put aside the money needed to build and to maintain roads and harbors. Do we want to educate our children? Well, if we do, it might be appropriate to tax. And when you tax a community to get the things that the people as a whole need, then the question becomes, what is the basis of taxation? Should everybody be taxed equally, even if their resources are unequally distributed? Or should the taxes tax according to your resources? That is, taxing according to your ability to pay. If you're richer, you get taxed more. If you're poorer, you get taxed less to produce infrastructure, we call it, to produce useful things. Ideas like that are scattered all through Islamic teaching, Islamic culture, as they are in many other religious traditions. Then finally, there's the whole question of wealth and its distribution. Every religious tradition has had strong arguments against unequal distributions of wealth. The startling gap between the rich and the poor has provoked all religious traditions to include in them people, groups, traditions of criticism of inequality and advocacy as a matter of religious belief, advocacy of equality, of redistributing wealth to achieve greater equality. So to make a long story short, and to answer the question, yes, Waleed, there are overlaps, and they're important. They are ways for the socialist critique of capitalism, a system of extreme inequality, extreme instability, such as the crash we are living through now, and the injustice that goes with inequality and instability. That is a profoundly troubled economic system. And there are resources within Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all the traditions contain in them great thinkers, great writers, traditions of criticism of inequality and instability that can be and should be resources for affirming and building coalitions between and among socialists, critics of capitalism, Islamists, Christians, Jews, and so on. Might be a basis for religious alliances that would be very important for economic change and vice versa.